So first I do apologize that we have only reserved this room, which is quite far, and most probably that's why students haven't even found it. However, we certainly have today a very challenging topic. We are supposed to have two prominent speakers, who should be talking to us. However, we are expecting still our Shoqi Maktary, who will be coming. He has called already to apologize that he will be a few minutes late. And I thought, as we have a very limited time frame from 1 to 2, that we start, and then whenever Shoqi comes, he can certainly take up. So our former ambassador and colleague, Ambassador Mohamed Badr Zayed, who is a very dear friend and colleague from the Foreign Ministry. We have also, as said, Mr. Shoqi Maktary, whom I'm going to represent, is a distinguished Yemeni national and a country director of a well-known NGO called Soleya. Soleya is, we also deal, AUC deals with Soleya, and Kazar, my center, or the center which I direct, deals with this NGO. And it helps in a course on East-West dialogue, and it helps to make this course very interesting for students, because it's sort of an online course with different students from around the world. He is supposed to be there. We will certainly benefit from our two veterans in Yemeni affairs. How can we work out a coherent policy in Yemen with, certainly, as we know, each country and each fraction in Yemen pulling in different directions. So, I mean, this is a real puzzle and a real riddle which we leave it to our experts to try to solve. And we know, I mean, it is even becoming more difficult with today's new administration, as President Trump, in contrast to Obama, is certainly now taking sides. President Obama was more of finding a political solution or a peaceful solution to the Yemeni crisis. However, Trump, with his strikes on Yemen, has clearly shown that he's taking sides, and has clearly taken side with Saudi Arabia, approving, in a way or another, a military solution for the crisis, and antagonizing Iran to the maximum. So it is, I mean, certainly I may be wrong, it's our expert who is going to correct this. However, this is my reading of the way the two administrations are conducting their policies in contrast to one another. Our two speakers, I mean, expecting Mr. Shoqi to be there in a few minutes, but Ambassador Mohamed Badr Zayed will certainly have what we call an impossible mission. I mean, to solve this riddle and come up with what basically the international community has failed to identify, a coherent policy in Yemen, which is a non-existent thing. So we'll see how it's going to, certainly I'm really very excited to hear about this, because Yemen is now becoming an important point in the US policy. Whether, I doubt that it is because of its challenge to the US national security, it is more of what Trump believes to corner Iran and antagonize Iran wherever it is in the region. So let us hear from a more knowledgeable person than me on Yemen. Ambassador, you have the floor.
Thank you, Ambassador. It's also my pleasure to be with you this afternoon and to meet my colleague and friend, Ambassador Magda Shahin. Even if the topic is very difficult, and I'm not sure I'm going that far as her expectation in this regard. I think from following the issue, I left Yemen 11 years ago. And from following the issue, I think we need to understand more about it first, because it's more complicated and difficult. And without understanding what is going on now, we cannot talk about any solution or anything like this. And I'm going to deal with the subject with number of aspects, which I think will lead us at the end to a better understanding of the roots and dimensions of this crisis. The first aspect is the Zaydi Sunni one. The Yemeni society is, and I see, is and or was, or is still divided. This is a very complicated issue, but it is divided into two main sects, the Zaydi and the Sunni one. And due to the fact that the Zaydi is the most closest Shia sect to Sunnah, and also for historical and social reasons, the coexistence between the two sects characterize the relations between the two sides. Here we notice that the revolution against the Imam regime in 1962, which was supported by Egypt, and was a revolution toward modernization and reform. It was supported by the bulk of Sunnah and an important part of the Zaydi tribes, all against the Zaydi Hashemite establishment, which ruled the country for more than 4 centuries. And it's also important to note that after the unification of Yemen between the north and south, the majority became Sunnah, because the whole south is Sunnah. This is a very important background we have to start with. The second aspect is the change inside the two sects. Historically, Yemen were Shafi'i doctrines, you know, Shafi'i and Maliki and all this, which is one of the very moderate Islamic doctrines. But due to Yemeni labor in Saudi Arabia and other Gulf countries, and due to Saudi intervention in Yemen, financially and culturally, many or some Sunnah, we don't have numbers. Nobody knows exactly how big this phenomena is, a change inside the Sunnah sect or the Zaydi sect. But many Sunnah at least turned to Wahhabism, Salafist doctrine. And it's even said that some Zaydi Yemeni who turned to Sunnah became Salafist. On the other side, we see also change inside Zaydi. Some of their conservative, especially in the north, in Saada Governorate, became very close to Isna Ashriya, or the doctrine of the 12 in Shia. This happened after the Badr al-Housi, the leader of this movement, went to Qom in Iran to study. And he came back to spread this new doctrine. It's actually, some people still discuss if it's Isna Ashriya completely or something in between Isna Ashriya and Zaydi doctrine. The third aspect, so we are seeing now there is a change inside the fabric of the society during the last 20, 30 years. Third aspect is the Saudi-Yemeni relationship, or from another perspective, the Saudi intervention in Yemen. As we all know, the Saudi royal family tried to control the whole Arabian Peninsula. And where they stopped in the eastern side by the British, and they reached a mutual understanding that the Saudi kingdom doesn't include those emirates, which are now the rest of the current Gulf countries. So they tried south. This resulted in a war with Yemen, lasted for many years, and ended by a peace treaty, didn't include the occupation of North Yemen, Asir and Najran, which is now the south of Saudi Arabia. And the Saudi failed to control the difficult mountain of Saada, north of Yemen, where they have challenged by the tough Zaydi tribes and by the tough mountains. The conflict with the Imam regime, which has many roots also in the conceptual and the ideological views, was changed dramatically after the revolution in Yemen 1962. And the Saudi considered that the Nasrists and the Republicans ideas are more threat than the Imam of Yemen, their old enemy. So this resulted in a long war ended by the defeat of the royal troops and a heavy loss for Egypt, which supported the Republican during that time. In spite of the Saudi loss, they continued their intervention in Yemen, especially financially, politically, and culturally. So they succeeded by the end of 70s to eliminate the Nasrist movement in North Yemen. And for decades, the Saudi government invested heavily in Yemen from all aspects. And they succeed to spread, which we have to be honest in this regard, spread Wahhabism, corruption, and their big success was the signing of the Borders Treaty a decade ago, which contained the acceptance of the Yemeni state to the concession of the disputed area Asir and Nagran, currently south of Saudi Arabia. The fourth aspect is the tribal factor. Yemen is currently a country which keeps the most profound tradition of the tribal society in the whole Arab world. Even the South, who didn't share the deep tradition, became, because of the British colonialism, the impact of Port of Aden, and the communist rule for almost 2 decades before unification, this South witnessed a kind of setback after unification. And in the absence of clear code of ethics in the South, this resulted in the spread of Salafism, particularly in Hadramaut. The fifth aspect is the nature of the political game during the presidency of Ali Abdullah Saleh. Saleh, who was a very clever politician, started as a young soldier in the Republican Army during the revolution, who succeeded to gain good ties with the Egyptian army, and later on with the Saudi, he managed to have a very strong and long presidency, a man who allied himself to Saddam Hussein, and later on managed to regain his ties with the Saudis and the Gulf countries. Saleh used 3 major tools: tribal tradition, corruption, and the old rule, divide and rule, in order to keep his long presidency. One of his tools was to encourage the Houthi at the beginning to counterbalance the Salafism and to maneuver between the two sides for more than a decade. Then came this, the sixth dimension, which is the Houthi Salafist case. Here, nothing could reveal how Saleh government used this Houthi Salafism theme than the way they tried to fight Houthi ideas. Not by the Zayed tradition in the north, but by allowing the Wahhabis to establish a school and centers in Sa'da. And at the end, this confrontation was and the 6 wars between the government and the Houthi. The first one was in 2004, and Yemen witnessed, as I said, 6 wars, ended by the spread of the idea in Sa'da and other northern area. At the same time, spread of the Wahhabi Salafists and the Muslim Brotherhoods, adding more complexity to the Yemen society. And Saleh used this conflict to enhance his power and to prepare his son Ahmed, the head of the Republican Guard, to replace him. The conflict became more complicated because of the ties between General Mohsen Saleh, the president half-brother, and the strongest man of the army, and the man who believes in political Islam. This is, imagine, they send one person who is a Salafist, head of the army, to fight the Houthi. To add more complexity, Qada. The spread of the Wahhabi idea, the tribal tradition, the extreme amount of weapons in the Yemeni society, and the geographical nature of Yemen made Yemen a safe haven for Yemeni and other nationality fighters who joined the Qa'da and left Afghanistan after American war following September 11. Qaeda started to control parts of South Yemen a decade ago, and to add another important factor in on the situation in Yemen. Then came what we call the Arab Spring. Yemeni revolution repeated exactly the Tahrir Square scenario, but with an important difference. They had also a division in the liberal forces. They had a strong, or the strength of the Muslim Brotherhood, who are organized more beside other fractions of political Islam, but also they had the existence of Houthi rebels inside Tahrir Square. And heavy Gulf intervention in the issue, which was resulted in the Gulf Initiative, and Hadi received power, and then Saleh was injured and he had to leave to Saudi Arabia for treatment. And after 2 years, after the failure of the political dialogue, Saleh returned to his country to revenge, and also to return control using the loyalties of the Republican Guard and some other troops. It's interesting to mention here that some people behind that, the Houthi movement, when they moved to Sana'a, believed that this was encouraged by the Saudi at the beginning to counter the influence of the brothers in the country. Anyway, several elements were a normal result of a changing scene in Yemen. The failure of the national dialogue, the elimination of the Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt, the death of King Abdullah, the rise of Mohamed bin Salman, the Houthi aggressive attitude after their control of Sana'a, the capital. Then they forced Hadi to resign, but he succeeded to escape to Aden, where he announced that he is still the legitimate president. As we all know, the Arab League, the United Nations, the Gulf Cooperation Council, GCC, and the West in general refused to recognize the constitutional declaration the Houthi movement declared. And so did several governorate in Yemen, rejected the Houthi authority. This is all led to the Saudi intervention on the 26th of March 2015, leading an Arab coalition, mainly Saudis, Emirates, Jordan, Qatar, Sudan, Morocco, beside Egyptian Navy blockade in the Gulf of Bab el-Mandeb. If I summarize the current situation now, Hadi government controlled more than half of the country, including the whole south and most of the desert area. But the Houthi rebels controlled the most populated area, including the capital Sana'a and the city of Taz, which is known for its Sunni majority. There are some information that the Houthi rebels are controlling most of the weapons which used to be with Saleh troops. Another important fact, President Hadi is a very weak, and some sources said, accuse him of allowing his son to play a leading role in his camp. Also, it's known that his camp includes some fanatic groups belong to political Islam. In the light of all this background, we can understand that the general Yemeni attitudes are against the two camps. But I expect that the masses under Houthi control prefer to get rid of them, whatever the price is. Here I expect also that the potential support of the Hashemite families, who are the largest number of their kind in the Arab world. I used to describe the Hashemite in Yemen, that Yemen is the storage of the Hashemite families in the Arab world. Those people, I expect that they have, even if they show some kind of support to Houthi, I don't think that they will accept Imam to come from the lowest branch of the Hashemite families. You know, the Hashemite tree, there is a different kind of thinking. So they accept now to counterbalance them, but they will never accept their authority or to have an Imam from them or from Iran for the Hashemite. While the other point, that the Houthi rebels use Iranian-made weapons, Besides what they captured from the army and what they smuggled, Iran still deny its direct support to them. The painful aspect is a humanitarian one. According to BBC, 7,006 people have died or have been killed, 42,000 injured since March 2015. 70% of the population are in need of aid. With the failure of UN efforts, none of the two sides is close to a decisive military victory. We can see conflicting reports about the retreat of the Houthi and the growing disagreement with Saleh, but I think the situation is still far from being settled in favor of any camp. Another negative element was the announcement 2 days ago in Hadramaut that it's going to be an entity, an independent entity, which also is known for its Wahhabi influence phenomena. I think this is a phenomenon need to be studied carefully and a very alarming one. The only hope which came lately was an initiative, we don't know if it's going to be any serious or not, by one of the prominent figure in the Yemeni society because of his tribal status, Mohamed bin Sinan, who announced from or called from Washington to a new initiative, called for complete stop of war, allowing the humanitarian assistance, inclusion of Russia. He believes that Russia could help in achieving settlement in Yemen, and the security plan for the capital within 30 days, supervised by the UN, and also opening Al-Hudaydah port, supervised by the UN. I certainly don't think this now Yemen is ready for any serious settlement. Even with what my friend Ambassador Magda talking about the change in the American administration, I'm not sure of the American administration, because even during Obama, there was a kind of help, intelligentsia, information was given to the Saudi coalition, but I don't think it's going to be dramatic change at the beginning in Trump, from the Trump administration now. And I think something has to happen on the ground first. In particular, ties or Hudaydah fail to, or is going to be very heavy because it's very crowded population, particularly in Taiz, which is now the battle is far from being settled in Taiz. But I think Taiz is very important in any compromise in the future. I will leave the floor for more discussions and for my colleagues. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mohamed. It was really very interesting to know the real historical background of emerging of the Houthis and the Zaydis, and certainly it's quite interesting. We will listen to Mr. Shoqi, Maktary, and as I presented at the very beginning, the very title of this panel is very challenging in trying to find a coherent policy in Yemen. I think Ambassador Mohamed came up with the, after giving us sort of a resume of the historical background, that the time is not yet ripe for such policy. And so we certainly would like also to hear your view before giving the floor for some discussion.
Thank you, and sorry again for being late. I really appreciate the detailed sequence of events and also the different dynamics. I always say that the Yemen conflict is so complex, even for us Yemenis, we are not able to understand it. It's layer over layers, and it's shoot deep back in the history. But when I was hearing this, I was writing 4 different points of 4 different dynamics that you need to keep in mind if you would like to understand how things happen in Yemen in relation to this conflict. One is Saleh role. First, if I retract just to let you know, in my work and my expertise, I do not do politics. We work at the track 2 and grassroots work with trying to help peace building. Through track 2, we tries to work with different people, kind of at least stabilizing the situations in certain areas. And with also another thing, the problem with this conflict, it's not only devastating. All the numbers that is mentioned by different agencies are very, I would say, polite. I mean, it's that the damage which you see in the country is 100% more, and it's still ongoing. 6 months ago, I mean, the spokesman for the coalitions talked about 90,000 airstrikes. That is 6 months ago. So what we are trying, what is the risk of this conflict is not only the direct damage that is happening now. This conflict is bringing new dynamics, bringing new divisions that has never been in Yemen. The term Sunni Shiite in Yemen is very relative. It's very new, and it's a new dividing line. The north and south, although has been before very heightened, but it's now even more, and it's not only between the north and the south, it was within the south itself. So this conflict is creating lots of new layers and dividing line, which means even if we get to that point where there is a political solution, the community itself will not be ready anymore for that kind of solutions, because the community will already be so much divided that you cannot bring them together. So this is what we are trying to do in our work, is trying to kind of keep the situation at a stage where if a political solution happens, peace can still exist. So going back to the analysis part, I mean, if you would like to understand the dynamic in Yemen, my understanding that those are 4 different dynamics are key. One is Saleh rule. Saleh, although being removed from power, is still the key factor in Yemen, at least from the internal points. He's still the ones with the majority of loyalty in the army, although this has been competed with the Houthis. He still holds lots of stash of weapons everywhere. He still holds lots of cards that he can play. And any negotiation, any things has to go through or by him, meaning that in order to forge solutions, the positions of Saleh, the interest of Saleh needs to be taken in considerations in that. And this weird relationship that they have with the Houthis. The second thing is, the second dynamic is the internal dynamics within Saudi Arabia itself. The thing that happened in Saudi Arabia, the shift that Malik Salman did, removing the secession structure in Saudi Arabia, where the sons of the founding king are to be in line, and putting his son next after the next, is something major. I mean, if we are neighbors of Saudi Arabia, and we understand that this is one of actually the key issues in Saudi Arabia. What will happen when used to be King Mukrin dies? Is it going to be like the second round of the oldest son, or is it going to be his sons? And what Salman did is major. And in order to establish something like that, that is my personal understanding, but they give the right ego or the right status for his sons to be the next king. This son needs to succeed, needs to wage a war and be a victor. I mean, the victorious. And Yemen is the battleground that is there. So that dynamics also plays in Yemen. So Saudi Arabia needs to succeed in Yemen, although the war is unsucceedable. I mean, looking from the ground, yes, there could be some major shifts if they take over Hodeidah, if they take over Taiz. That could create the pressure for a negotiation, but that might not lead to peace. That just might lead to limiting the war or extending the war or turn it into something else. But what is the way out for Saudi Arabia? That is also one question needs to be asked. Then the second aspect of the South. What the South wants. Do they want separations in total, so the South vis-a-vis the North, or the South internal dynamic itself? Because within the South itself there is identities that wants itself to split, and you have also unsolved trauma in the South itself, among the South and the South. So you have the Hadramis now trying to kind of be looked at independence units, then you have the Dali'is, then you have the Abinis, and all that dynamic is also crucial to the future of Yemen. Whenever you think, okay, we will come to a political agreement, okay, what is the South? How will the South will look like? Is it going to be part of the Yemen? Is it going to be separated? Is the solutions that's two countries and then solve the situation one each a time? The fourth dynamic that is there is the Saudi Emiratis different positions, and this is very clear in the South. Each one has a different agenda. Each one has a different approach to it. While in one hand, the Emiratis seems to be very supportive of separation of the South, the Saudis that is not in their interest. And this also plays. I mean, you can see it in contradicting statements here and there on the ground, like what happens last time in when Hadi was kind of his airplanes was refused to allow to be landed by forces that is loyal to the Emiratis, and then it's escalated to Saudi Arabia, and then something, so far it's not clear what happens. It's kind of like they forego a situation or a solution where the Emiratis will kind of back off a little bit, but they still now push up in Hadramaut. And even in Hadramaut, in the meeting in Hadramaut, that was boycotted by some key figures from Hadramis who are actually Saudi nationals. Also illustrate these two different positions. So to me, those are four key dynamics are key in order to think about the future and to understand what's happening. I'm trying to rush just to allow as much time for people to ask, because the conflict element is so complex that is not just one way to look at it. There is always different entries. But one of the things that we are doing in Yemen is looking for a different way, looking for, like, we do what we call it a peace building analysis or peace analysis, with the notion that you could keep analyze the situation every day and it's keep changing every day. But what are the entry points? Where can be an entry point? One, thanks to my colleagues, I mean, yes, if there is a major shift in the status on the ground. So like the coalitions when Taiz or when Hudaydah, that's created situations where the Houthis are willing to sit on the table. Still, will that means a sustainable peace or just a truce for some times until they reorganize? So that is one major event that could be an entry point for peace. A shift in the in U.S. position, although this is not yet clear. There is from the beginning when Trump took over, there was a strong statement supporting Saudi Arabia. Last times when the defense minister visits Saudi Arabia and starts talking about we are supporting Saudi, but in the same time we look for a peaceful solutions. That's also started some motions in Yemen, and Houthis said that they're willing to sit and discuss. Then there is the relationship between Saudi Arabia and Iran. If there is any breakthrough in this relationship, that will automatically reflect in Yemen. Looking also the situations in Syria, that is linked to the situation in Yemen. That could be something if there is a kind of a breakthrough. The role of Russia, I think they could play a role, but still it's with the Russian policy, it's give and take. So they needs to get something in Syria and they give up in Yemen. So it's like will be a kind of a bargaining chips. I agree. I mean, from this analysis, we do not see upcoming peace. It's still a rough process ahead. And the question is that, is this going to happen now? Meaning that these situations will continue as such, or there will be a major escalations of military activities that could lead to famine, which is already in place, especially if the Hudaydah is taken and ties, the operations extend there. Might that be something created more pressure on the different parties to sit on the table or not? That could be it. Actually, I mean, one of the things that I always say that, I mean, such discussion like this and such events like this, when we are trying to kind of highlight the situation in Yemen, trying to kind of talk about the damage that's happening, the killing that's going on in Yemen, that is part of the solution. Because one of the key issues in Yemen that is led for this neglection for the last 2 years is that nobody knows what's going on. there is not that enough reports of human rights violation that happens, the number of killing that happens, the number that mentions talking about 10,000, 7,000 people killed. I believe that is very, very, not even a percentage of what's going on. The damage to the infrastructures, the damage to people's life, it's also unreported. So the more people know about this, I think the more pressure that is on those players and actors who are involved to kind of like, let's sit on the table. The key questions would be not only sitting on the table, but if this peace that we're going to have, or these peace agreements will last. We've seen it in the GCC agreement. The GCC agreements had lots of flaw in itself, and that's why it failed after 2 years. So what we don't want to have is to have a second agreement that will last for 1 or 2 years, and then things will go back again to where it started. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and it's really very intriguing, but also very confusing. I wouldn't tell you that I know more, but I would like to understand, maybe before opening the floor, who should sit on the table? The Houthis, Saleh, the Salafists, the Zaydis, and then who should bring these fractions to the table? Saudi, Iran, Russia, US.
Russia doesn't have.
And then it seems to me that from both of your interventions, that Iran is not so much involved as we all thought. I mean, I thought that Iran was one of the main players in there. And it's for the first time that I hear that Russia can play a role. With whom can Russia play a role, and how is this kind of, what you said about this kind of, giving up something in Yemen to get something in return in Syria. So what is this quid pro quo?
Excuse me, the Russian is not a player now. The Russian issue is just a new proposal by Mohamed bin Salman. It's not, the Russians are not a player, actual one in maybe indirectly, but they are not really an actor now. And the other issue, before going back to your difficult one, my colleague was talking about the Saudi Emirates disagreement. I think there is an important aspect here also, not about the separation of the South, but also about the role of the Salafist and the Muslim Brotherhood in the process. So the Emirates are not pro the involvement or the heavy involvement of the Salafists in Hadi troops. This is why they are against Hadi. The Emirates, because they want to they are not happy with Hadi, because Hadi allowed the Salafist group to play an important role, because he doesn't have enough army, because most of the army is with Saleh.
Yeah.
The remaining of the army, we can call it this way, the remaining of the army is with Saleh. And the few troops that he has, Hadi, the president, the legitimate president, so in order to compensate that, he used the Salafist and the other political Islam groups in the army. Actually, and the battle in the ground is still new after all the airstrikes, which is still new. It's not yet clear what's going on. And your hard question to talk about, I will leave it to Mr. Shoqi, and then I will talk about, because I don't want to.
Yes. So the way that this question comes about, okay, if we are going to have a negotiation, who should negotiate? And I think this should be a staged negotiation. The first needs to have an agreement among the key political actors. Now, meaning Houthis, Saleh, Islah, Hadi governments, and also the Southern. Although the Southerns could be represented by Hadi governments, at least at the first stage. Then the next stage, when this kind of an agreement happens, then you talk about all the other actors, and all the other actors include even frictions within Houthis and within Islah, within the Nasrists, the socialists, the Iraq movements in the south, and all those different players. The problem with the national dialogue previously, that first it was not allowed enough time. Second, that it was not sequenced well, because the key issues that has to be talked about and agreed about were put at the end. Just then, eventually people do not agree, and they just delegate Hadi, and Hadi take a decision. And that was the thing. And there was no that financial and economical backup by the Gulfies to kind of give Hadi the, what's he call it, the legitimacy. Hadi legitimacy came from his ability, or the support that received from the Gulf. Now, in that sense, and then bringing the international players. The problem with the international players is that you're looking for neutrality for each side. So the Houthis would see the European Union more neutral than the US. They would see the Russians more neutral than the US, and they would like to see them in the table at least.
And they would accept Egypt.
Yeah, Egypt. I mean, that is one thing. I mean, Egypt could play a key role. The problem with Egypt it's not playing a role. I would not believe that the war would have happened if Egypt was, as it used to be, kind of the player in the area. The vacuum that's Egypt's disappearance from the political arena created a new player of Saudi Arabia, which with not that much political experience, and they starts bumping against everybody in the region. So this aspect of neutrality, the needs for having neutral people. So the Saudis would love to see the Americans on the table. They would like to see the British on the table. But on the other hand, the Houthis and Saleh would like to see some other counterbalance. With Russia, although Russia does not play a key role in Yemen now, but it could play that guarantee role, and it could play that balancing roles to the U.S. role in another way. But the Russia positions in Yemen is linked to the positions in Syria. So it's not like, they don't look Yemen as a separate one. When it comes to Iran, actually the Iran role is overrated. And it's overrated by means trying to kind of like, the Houthis in many cases actually put themselves on the spots, being like supported by Iran. But when you look for the realities, that is not there. Yes, of course there is, let's say, moral support, there is media support, but physical, tangible support is no validated reports that states that Iran actually is supporting the Houthis with guns, at least with quality weapons. And keep in mind that Yemen has always been previously a route for weapon smuggling. That comes from everywhere, including Iran, and then challenge to Africa. So that could be the reasons why there is they capture a number of weapons coming to Yemen. Couldn't be for the Houthis, mostly for armed dealers. I hope that.
Yes, but if I comment on this issue, we have to I abuse two important issues. The stage, because we need a national dialogue first, but we have to remember that the negotiations at the end should be conducted between the government as Hadi. This is the main side, which representing many other fractions in the society, and the Houthi rebels as the main actor also here. And when it comes to the role of Egypt, this is what I didn't talk about, because I think we had many important messages. I'm sure Mr. Shoqi remembered, even from Abdul Malik al-Houthi himself at the beginning of the war, calling Egypt to intervene. And I believe that's maybe because of the historical and the relationship between Yemen and Egypt, and the how, maybe Mr. Shoqi can see, when I was watching what was going on in Al-Gumhuriyya Square in Yemen, as they were having in mind what exactly happened in Tahrir Square, trying to repeat it. The impact of Egypt in Yemen is very important, but unfortunately we are absent, so this is happening.
There is one challenge actually that the coalition forces has in Yemen, which is key to why they so far are not able to articulate the solutions. Who would replace Hadi? They would need somebody in the shoes of Hadi with loyalty to Saudi Arabia. And the problem that is Hadi do not have let's say a political party or have a strong, savvy supporter that can take his place. He's kind of like a lone man, and everybody just gather around. So the replacement of Hadi in one sense in the south is totally rejected, even in the north. So nobody wants him, and that is very logical. That's what is needed is a new person or a new president. But how can you ensure that this new president is loyal to the Gulf? That is the other problem.
Okay, thank you so much. And now, if there are any other questions, the floor is open for you. Yes, اتفضل حضرتك. لو حضرتك عايز تسأل السؤال بالعربي اتفضل حضرتك وهنرد عليه بالعربي.
السؤال الاولاني لماذا فشل الدكتور شوقي الرئيس الاممي وكانت قبل عامين تقريبا للوساطة، ومع ذلك فشلت أو ماتت قبل أن تولد هذه الوساطة. الحاجة الثانية إن هل يمكن أو طرح مؤخرا إن من الممكن أن تتدخل بمصر أو تتوسط، بلاش تتدخل، تتوسط مع الحوثيين رغم أن هناك ضغوط على أنها لا تتدخل؟ هل يمكن أن يكون هناك فعلا تدخل؟ وبعدين عاوزين نعرف بقى بالأمانة الحقيقة إيه؟ هل فعلا إيران هي التي تقود هذه الأمور بغطرسة؟ وهل المملكة السعودية، المملكة العربية السعودية عندما تدخلت كانت تتدخل دفاعا عن اليمن قبل حدودها، ولا الحقيقة غير ذلك؟ شكرا.
اوكي، بالنسبة المبادرات اللي عملها الأمم المتحدة فشلت. المشكلة كانت إن دايما مين اللي يقعد على الترابيزة؟ كان مين اللي يجلس على الترابيزة؟ كان دايما الفكرة إن الأطراف اليمنية تقعد على الترابيزة وتتحاور لوجود حل، بس فعليا الأطراف اللي بيدها القرار الحل مش يمنية. يعني كانت المفاوضات في الكويت بتدور بين أطراف يمنية، بينما القرارات تصدر من الرياض. حتى بالنسبة المشكلة الثانية اللي كانت إنه كان الطرفين الآخر، أنت كان عندك طرف اللي هو الحكومة الشرعية الممثلة بهذه، والطرف الآخر اللي هو عندك اللي هو الحوثيين وصالح. كان في موقفين مختلفين، الحوثي عنده موقف مباين لموقف صالح، وبالتالي كان التفاوض ما بين ثلاثة أطراف وليس طرفين. المشكلة كانت زي ما قلت دايما فكرة إنه كانت المفاوضات وقفت عند نقطة مين اللي هيكون بدل الرئيس هذا. كيف ممكن التحالف يضمن إن الرئيس اللي جاي هيكون يعني قادر يمسك بالأمور، وبالتالي كمان اللي هي الولاء ما زال أو موجود للخليج. فأفتكر دي كانت الأسباب. برضو كمان كان ما عندكش اللي هو أعتقد إنه كان دايما الإشكالية في المرحلة دي إنه كلا الطرفين كان ما زال عنده فكرة القدرة على الانتصار، أتليست من ناحية الكواليشن. مع أن أنا كنت في المرحلة اللي كانت فيها المفاوضات الكويت كنت في أكثر مراحل التفاؤل، إنه كانت في الطرفين وصلوا لمرحلة إنه يعني ما فيش حد هيقدر يفوز ولازم نقعد. بس eventually لما وصلت النقطة لنقطة موضوع اللي هو الرئيس هادي بقائه من ذهابه، صارت الموضوع so difficult. احتمال أن يكون في انفراج المعركة. بالنسبة
عفوا ممكن أعمل بس تدخل بسيط. أنا حضرت أحد اللقاءات
كنا خلاص هنعلن، يعني هيتم الإعلان في خطوات جدة، وفجأة تحدث اتصالات خلال ساعة نجد الأمر تعقد تماما أكتر مما كان. شكرا.
ما هي دي اللي قلتها، ان الناس اللي قاعدين في الترابيزه ما هموش الاشخاص اللي بدهم يعني حتى الاطراف اللي هي قاعده ما عندهاش التمثيل الكامل من مصادرها في اليمن. هادي ما عندوش التفويض المطلق من السعوديه، ولا الاعضاء الموجودين عندهم التفويض المطلق من صالح وغيره.
بس في نقطه الحقيقه اسمح لي، انه اليمن اخذت شكل انه اصبحت جزء من الصراع الايراني السعودي، وان حل الملفات تحل مره واحده، وهذا الكلام كان مطروحا في حاله سوريا، حاله ايران، حتى في تعيين رئيس للجمهوريه في لبنان. وتعيين رئيس للجمهوريه في لبنان خرج بسرعه بره اللعبه دي، لانه كان بينظر انه هو هيستمر، ما بيتحلش الا لما يتحل الصراع كله على بعضه، يبقى في هنا ثمن وجاء مقابل ثمن اخر. ده اشكال يعني، ده اشكال.
السفير السعوديه وقفت وبركه رئيس الوزراء
احنا دلوقتي انا مش انت حضرتك انا بقول لك على طرح مطروح في المنطقه. ما هو السعوديه غيرت موقفها بالكامل فيما يتعلق بلبنان، انما المطروح كان في هذه المرحله عندما كانت مفاوضات الكويت قائمه، انه طرح راي انه لا يمكن تحصل تسويه من غير ما تحصل تسويه شامله في المنطقه. ده بقول لك اراء طرحت، وكان الحديث تحديدا انه النزاع في اليمن يبقى مقابل النزاع، وهو ده الاساسي بالنسبه للسعوديه اللي هي ممكن تتنازل في سوريا لكن تتنازل في اليمن.
وده كمان بيجي
للسؤال مهمه.
السؤال اللي طرحته فكره انه ايه الدور اللي بتلعبه ايران؟ انا بشوف الدور اللي بتلعبه ايران هي مستفيده من الدور ده. اليمن حرب بتخوضها السعوديه بتشغلها عن ملفات اخرى، استنزاف للسعوديه بس فعليا هل ايران ليها دور فعلي؟ مثلا لو تقارن الدور الايراني في العراق او في سوريا بالدور في اليمن، ما فيش يعني. في كلام بيتكلم عن مدربين، في كلام بيتكلم عن سلاح، ممكن
تدريب الحزب،
ممكن بس ما هياش على نفس المستوى التدخل الكبير الظهوري ولا بشوف ان بالنسبه لايران اليمن اهميتها بالنسبه لايران بالحجم ده. اليمن مهمه لايران فقط انها حاجه بتشغل فيها السعوديه، بس يعني ما فيش ذات استراتيجيك، يعني العمق الاستراتيجي بالنسبه لمصلحه ايران في اليمن. بالاضافه الى ان العنصر الديني بيلعب دور. فكره التشيع في اليمن يعني حاجه جديده جدا. يعني صحيح ان في اليمن في عندك الشافعيه والزيديه، بس المذهبين متقاربين جدا، وحتى الزيديه بالافكار في الفكر الشيعي ما تعتبرش من المدارس بقى الشيعيه اللي
هي اقرب مذاهب السنه، وده انا اتكلمت عنه في الاول. هي اقرب مذاهب الشيعه الى السنه، وعلى فكره لا يوجد في اليمن حسينيات ولا مساجد مختلفه، الناس كلها بتصلي في مساجد واحده، وده نقطه مهمه جدا لازم تاخدها في اعتبارك.
طب ما بشوفش انه ايران عندها البعد الديني اللي ممكن تلعب فيه في الاونات، يعني بيهمها في اليمن قوي يعني، بس هي مستفيده من
Turn again to English because
حاجه بس بسرعه عشان البعد الديني. طول عمر المنطقه الخارجيه تحديدا عايشه في مع الشيعه مختلف مذاهب اخرى، لكن هو فكره بقى توريد لينا فكره الهيمنه او فرض السيطره او التدخل في شؤون الغير. وكانت هناك قرارات أممية وكانت هناك تقارير استخباراتية ان تم القبض على عدة سفن محملة بالأسلحة الإيرانية ناحية البحر الأحمر ومتجه إلى اليمن. الحقيقة بقى إيه؟
أول حاجة فكرة إن التعايش ما بين السنة والشيعة في الخليج ده موجود. أنا شخصيا يعني بشوف إنها نار تحت الرماد. يعني اليمن تختلف، نار تحت الرماد. يعني فكرة إن التعايش موجود والكل يحب بعض دي يعني ما هيش بلدي عشان اقدر احكم فيها.
بس هو اليمن كان فيها تعايش وكان فيها وضع مختلف.
اليمن تختلف عن الخليج
تماما. اليمن
يعني مذهبيا انا في 2007 كنت عملت دراسه عن موضوع اللي هي المقارنه ما بين العراق واليمن من ناحيه العنف الطائفي، وكيف ان اليمن بتعطي نموذج للتعايش. الفرق ان في اليمن ما فيش عندنا تاريخ طائفي. في 1400 سنه ما فيش عندنا اي احداث في اليمن اشتباكات او عنف حصل على اساس طائفي.
اسمح لي، لازم الناس تعرف ان الاسره الهاشميه الاماميه دعيت الى حكم اليمن، دعيت استخدمت من الحجاز. دي نقطه الناس مش عارفاها قد ايه غريبه. يعني يعني هم لما اختلفت القبائل من يحكم اليمن من 400 500 سنه دعوا الامام زيد ان هو يجي. فده فكره لم يكن هناك اي نوع من القتال بين المذهبين في تاريخ اليمن. عشان في اطراف، احنا قلنا في عوامل جديده دخلت.
دلوقتي في الموضوع ده ابتدى يشتغل كعنصر تضاد. بالنسبه انا ما اقدرش اكد ولا انفي، بس الفكره وما فيها انه يعني ما فيش تقارير. لغايه دلوقتي انا ما شفتش تقرير واحد بيؤكد سلميه ان السلاح ده كان مرسل لليمن للحوثيين زي ما قلت.
صواريخ
ممكن
في صواريخ إيرانية استخدمت مؤكد.
Let's for one last question in English, please, before we conclude. Does anyone want to raise a question? not, I would like to raise another question regarding the U.S. What do you believe the new administration kind of interest towards Yemen now? Will they be a sort of, will they intervene? I mean, how do you assess the last intervention or the last strike of the U.S. Trump in Yemen?
Lots of mixing signals. Actually, the talks about that U.S. is evaluating their positions vis-a-vis the issue of Hodeidah Harbor, taking over Hodeidah Harbor. That is one of the top issues. Then, when the defense ministers visited Arabia and he starts talking about the need for political solutions, that's created a shift. I believe, I mean, it is a great interest for U.S. to kind of bail Saudi out of Yemen. Try to think about, okay, what is the way out? Because they could support Saudi Arabia. That could be good for business, for military contracts. But that war will not be won by war. It could lead to more killing. It could lead to more destruction, but it will not lead to a military victory. What we are seeing now is the easy fight, is the easy part of the fight. It's the coastal areas. The difficult part will be when they step up in the northern areas. Like in now we see in Nehem, where there has been the fight that we see in Makkah, which has already taken now over 4 months, is the easy part. It's not the difficult one. The difficult one is yet to come. So I'm not sure, I mean, how they waited, but I think they are looking for a solution. And the idea is that how can we, I think, pressure the Houthis and Salehs to agree to that solution. That is probably the strategy.
Okay. Thank you.
Maybe the last thing I would say here about the solution, maybe an important step is to have a deputy president who you can negotiate with, because this is what maybe the old scenario when they used Khalid Baha, who was from the south and who was trusted by the Gulf countries, but unfortunately it didn't work between him and the Hadi. Maybe because of his son, whatever, but I think the only scenario, the first exit from this situation is to the Hadi to be forced to appoint a deputy president who negotiates and who can be a real partner or a real player in the sea.
But that is, I mean, if I may comment, I mean, this is part of what I said, the Emirati is very dynamics.
Yeah.
When Hadi suddenly announced Al-Ahmar as his deputy, it was actually kind of like a block, because the initial agreements that was discussed in Kuwait that his authorities will be transferred to his deputy. So when he put Al-Ahmar, it's blocked. Nobody will agree that Al-Ahmar be the one in command. And I think, yeah, that's I totally agree. I mean, having a second person from the Yemen government who is acceptable, or at least to some extent, shouldn't be everybody, but who people could negotiate with, who could people associate an agreement with, that's crucial. Now the golden question is who that might be.
Mm-hmm.
We might eventually do like the Yemenis did in the past and ask for somebody from outside to come, like we did with the Hashimis.
Yeah.
Okay, I think it's time. If there are no more questions, we would like to thank very much our two speakers, and certainly it was very enriching, and it was a very stimulating discussion, and I believe I myself have learned a lot, and thank you very much for being with us.